Hey, it's Nate from Navigator Bookkeeping, and talking today about probably the most important topic, at least most therapists would probably say it's the most important topic when it comes to running a practice. Basically, cash flow and how much of a cash reserve to build. We talk to clients all the time. They had a good month, revenue's coming in, but right before they run payroll, they're still getting that really terrible stress and that really terrible feeling of not enough being in the checking account. It's one of the worst feelings. Most people say it's worse than losing a client, it's worse than a bad review, it's worse than a therapist leaving. That cash flow crunch is the worst feeling you can feel as a business owner. Think about it. This is pretty important. So, why does this happen? How do we solve it, right? Really, the base problem is that most people, when they're running a business, whatever money they have in their checking account, they just treat that money as available. It's just, we can use that for expenses, for payroll, all the things. But here's the thing, that money is not all available for just the expenses that come up. Some of that money needs to be set aside as a reserve because money goes up and down, revenue goes up and down. We need to prepare for that. So here's kind of the thing that most people don't tell you when you're running and starting a practice. Number one, your expenses are predictable. Payroll, rent, software, those things get pulled out of your checking account every single month. It's not going to change. It's not going to go away. But your income doesn't work the same way, right? If you're on insurance, insurance pays on its own schedule. Sometimes it might take 15 days to get paid. Sometimes it may take 30, 45. Sometimes the money may never come. It's all over the place. Even if you're private pay, you're still going to have payments that are late, clients that don't pay, things are going to happen, but your expenses are still there. This is very similar to the videos we made in the last couple of weeks about opening a second location, about paying your team. Your revenue and your expenses are on different timelines. They always are. So expecting them to act exactly the same way is just not going to work, right? So our expenses, they're going to keep happening. Income, it's going to fluctuate. Sometimes it'll come right on time. Sometimes it's going to be slow. Sometimes it's going to go missing. So because of that, we need a buffer. We need basically a reserve to smooth out those bumps. So when those bumps come, it's not a crisis. It's something that we can deal with. So the number one question that we get when we're talking about this reserve is, of course, how much should I have, right? How much of a reserve should I have? We talk to people who have way too much because they just keep saving, saving, saving. And most of the time we talk to people who have very little or no reserve. The sweet spot is somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks of your operating expenses. What are operating expenses? That's pretty much everything besides your therapist payroll. So everything that's going to be there, whether the clients come in or whether they don't, whether the revenue comes in or whether it doesn't, you're still going to have rent, you're still going to have software, you're still going to have that cloud bill, you're still going to have utilities and insurance and all those pieces. Those are the operating expenses. So 6 to 8 weeks of that, about 2 months. You could go to 3 months, you could go to 4 months. Once you start getting past 4 months of operating expenses, at that point, I think you're probably just over saving, unless you're preparing for something specific like an expansion, hiring somebody on a salary. That's almost a separate account. This 6 to 8 weeks, maybe 6 to 12 weeks should be in a separate reserve account. And that's all it's for. It's just for emergencies, emergency fund, reserve fund, whatever you want to call it. Profit First uses the term vault account. This is not your checking. It's separate. It's money that you cannot see, right? It's not in that pool of all of your other money. When you have money that you can see that's just in that big pool, you're going to spend it, right? If we think about another Profit First idea or term, smaller plates is how they think through things. If you have a smaller plate, you're going to eat less. Money works the same way. If you have a smaller checking account with less money in there, you're going to spend less. So take the money out of there, move it to a reserve account, move it to an expansion account, move it to those separate places so they have purposes, give the dollars a job, right? Now, how do we do that? You might think 6 to 12 weeks of expenses, that's pretty impossible. I'm not gonna be able to do that. So here's how you do it. It's not gonna happen overnight. It's not a quick fix, but the nice thing to know is that it's basically just a process, just a habit to get into. If you follow the habit, you can do it. So you start with 1 week. Don't try to build the 8 weeks or the 12 weeks right away. Just start with 1 week. 1 week of expenses. And what you're going to do is you're just going to set aside a percentage of your money as it comes in. So if you had, $2,000 come in today, let's try to set aside, 5% of that, $100, set it aside. And over time, just set that aside day by day, week by week, and over time, you're going to build that up. When you have a strong month, when you have a month where the revenue's coming in, maybe your accounts receivable is really shrinking because the money's getting paid in, make sure those are the months that you're especially saving. Your strong months need to carry you in the weak months. The weak months, you may not be able to set aside as much, but still try to set aside a little bit at least. Keep that habit going, set aside that small percentage of revenue, put it into that reserve account, and over time, you're going to pretty quickly have a pretty nice reserve account, all of a sudden you may be surprised, wow, I'm actually okay here. So the reserve's not about, being scared, not about living in fear. It's not about like trying to hold on to all the cash. It's really just making sure that you have the time to make decisions so that when the cash flow crunch happens, when a clinician leaves, when a payment is late, whatever that is, you're making a decision from a place of strategy and having time to consider your options instead of panicking because there's no money in the checking account. When your payroll's covered 6 months out or so, you're going to hire better. You're going to be able to negotiate better with therapists if you're talking about compensation, things like that. And the best part is you're going to be able to actually sleep and not be living in stress. So think about this. Think about, hey, if my revenue drops 10 to 20% next month, could I still make payroll? Could I still cover my rent? If you can, you may be all set. You may have this reserve account. If you can't, that tells you, hey, this is maybe something to start building on. And if this isn't you, if you don't have a reserve account at all, it's not a failure at all. Don't feel like you're a failure. Don't feel like you're behind. Most practices don't have this. This is just where to start. Get that habit going. Start setting aside that percentage of revenue. And pretty soon you're going to be living a little bit less stressed, a little bit more confident. It's going to put you in a good place.